guys, tonight we're slipping into something warm, subtle, and strangely savory. No, not your grandmother's bedtime tea, but the earliest whispers of what would someday become pho. You're not here for drama or plot twists, you're here for slow, sleepy history. And I promise tonight's story will be just boring enough to drift you off. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from and what time it is right now. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You step into the misty air of the Red River Delta sometime in the 15th century. The sun is lazy, veiled behind monsoon clouds, and the sound of wooden sandals against packed dirt is the only real sign of morning. You're not holding a phone. You're holding a bundle of kindling because someone has to keep the fire alive under that giant soot-streaked pot at the back of the family hut. You can smell it already. It isn't pho, not yet. It's something more primitive, less polished. Just bones mostly, ox bones, sometimes buffalo, boiling for hours in water drawn from the muddy riverbanks. It smells earthy, not in the delicious umami broth way, more in the, I guess this is dinner way. The old woman beside the pot, possibly your great someone, stirs it with a stick. She hums a tune that you don't recognize, but your bones feel like they do. She tosses in salt, a few onions, a root or two. No spices, no star anise, definitely no cinnamon. The pot bubbles reluctantly, as though even it doesn't quite believe this will turn out well. There are no chopsticks, not yet. Not even bowls, not really, just coconut shells shaved smooth and held in calloused hands. The family gathers around, the broth is poured, the meat is scarce, the noodles non-existent. You slurp anyway, more for warmth than taste. You don't know it, but you're sipping the origin of a national dish that doesn't exist yet. The fire crackles, you think of what this might become centuries later. But back here, in this slow-moving age, where boiling bones is more survival than culture, no one calls it anything at all. It's just soup, just sustenance, not Instagram worthy. No food bloggers in sight. The rain begins to fall, rhythmic and unbothered. You're still hungry because, spoiler alert, 15th century broth is 80% water and 20% disappointment. Your cousin complains. Your grandfather tells him to chew the bone. There might be flavor left in the marrow. You try. It tastes like effort, like something you didn't choose but have to get through anyway. Kind of like Monday mornings, but wetter. Somewhere in the distance, a neighbor is boiling their own pot of bones. The smell wafts through the air, indistinguishable from yours. No recipes are written down. Everything is passed by memory or taste or accident. And yet, something starts to settle in. A ritual. You're part of it now. You hear the sizzle of a fish drying over the next fire pit. Someone coughs. A dog barks. The world turns, achingly slow. Somewhere far in the future, a chef will claim to have reinvented this dish, adding truffle oil and pricing it at $29 a bowl. But here now, it's just hot water with bones in it. Still, it's comforting. It keeps you warm. It keeps you alive. And in this version of the past, that's enough. The soup is gone. The pot stays on the fire. Tomorrow, more bones will go in. Maybe a bit of meat if someone gets lucky fishing. You lean back against the wooden post of the hut, the steam wrapping around your face like a quiet lullaby. You're not tired. You're just full of warmth. A slow warmth that starts in the belly and melts into the limbs. And whether or not you realize it, you've just taken the first sip in a centuries-long story. You'll remember the smell, you'll forget the taste, and you'll fall asleep wondering why we ever stopped calling it what it really was. Just soup. You wake up still somewhere in that slow, ancient world, except now the air smells stronger, meatier. It's not a dream, though it might as well be. The steam is thicker this time, rolling from the pot like morning fog through bamboo groves. But today's not about fog or steam. It's about the slow, clunky arrival of a very important guest, the water buffalo. Yes, you've arrived in a time when beef isn't the star, it's barely even on the caste list. In fact, cows are rare, sacred, and absurdly useful for farming. No one in their right mind eats one. That would be like roasting your tractor. But buffalo, they're sturdier, grumpier, less photogenic, and eventually someone somewhere, probably after a minor disagreement or a long drought, decides it's time to put old Boot the buffalo in the pot. You don't exactly get a front row seat to the butchering process, thankfully, but you're there when the meat hits the boiling water. The smell changes instantly. It deepens, grows darker, more animal. Not in a bad way, but in a way that makes your stomach say, hey, that's real food. People gather, cautiously curious. Some whisper, others watch the pot like it's some kind of black magic, because in a way it is. This is new, this is risky. It's not what grandmother used to do. You take a sip, it's rich, almost too rich. There's no balance yet, no finesse, just hot, salty animal essence, like drinking a very determined farm. Still, no one dies, not from the buffalo anyway. So the experiment continues. The elders shrug, the children slurp, and slowly a kind of acceptance grows. Maybe this isn't blasphemy. Maybe it's lunch. Of course there are no rice noodles yet. That delicate, slippery marble hasn't joined the party. Instead, you're chewing boiled greens and rough-cut roots, whatever they could pull from the mud that morning. The textures are all wrong, but your mouth doesn't care. Your belly is too busy saying thank you. You glance across the hut and catch someone trying to name the dish. He offers something like meat soup, and everyone groans. The name doesn't matter. Not yet. It'll come later. Right now, all that matters is that buffalo works, and yet the taste lingers in a weird way. It's intense, but not deep, like someone turned the volume up without adjusting the bass. You think, this could be better. It needs something, but the people here aren't concerned with better. They're concerned with enough, and buffalo gives enough. For now. You head outside. The village is muddy, full of chickens and kids and people who all seem to be holding small bowls. The steam from multiple pots coils into the gray sky like silent prayers. Everyone's doing the same thing, boiling something, stirring something, tasting, nodding, continuing. Back in your own hut, someone has figured out a trick. Roast the bones first, just a little, over an open flame. It smells different. Smokier, like possibility. You watch, fascinated as the marrow bubbles out like lava, then sinks into the broth. That small change makes a huge difference. The soup gets depth, warmth, a kind of soul. Someone else starts skimming the fat. Another adds a stalk of what might be lemongrass. Not much, just enough to raise an eyebrow. You're watching evolution in real time, not in years or centuries, but in small wooden bowls passed hand to hand. Still, beef is a dream, an extravagance. Buffalo remains the backbone, literally, of the dish. But once people know you can boil bones and create comfort, well, they don't stop. A few travelers arrive from the south trading spices and gossip. One of them mentions a city where they use cinnamon bark in their stew. Everyone laughs. Why would you waste bark on soup, someone mutters. You just smile. You already know what's coming. There's no restaurant, no name, no hype. Just steam, bones, and the slow realization that something is happening here, something important, even if no one writes it down, even if no one knows it yet. You taste the soup again before bed. It's saltier now, richer, more familiar, and as you curl up in your straw mat, your stomach full of buffalo and ambition, a sleepy thought drifts across your brain like fog. If this is just the beginning, how good could it really get? You close your eyes to the quiet hum of frogs and pots and breath. No star anise, no name, but still somehow it's starting to taste like pho. Morning comes again, but slower this time. You stretch, vaguely aware of sore knees and the ache of sleeping on woven mats. The fire's still smoldering, a thin trail of smoke curling up like an afterthought from last night's cooking. Your hands reach for the ladle instinctively, because what else is there to do but stir the pot? This morning's broth has thickened overnight. It clings to the wooden spoon like it has something to prove. And someone's already tossed in more buffalo bone. You can tell by the way the marrow floats to the top, little greasy halos forming around each bubble. And then you notice something weird. A young girl, maybe 10, maybe 40. It's hard to tell with all the soot on her face, isn't using a shell or a piece of bamboo to eat. She's got something long, thin, carved from a dark wood. She's holding it like a stick, or rather 2 sticks. You blink, are those chopsticks? Not quite. They're more like sharpened twigs, but they work. You watch as she lifts a scrap of meat from the broth with ease, balancing it, twirling it, popping it into her mouth like a tiny magician. You want to ask where she got them, but she just shrugs. Found them near the river. So now you're eating soup with sticks. Carefully, clumsily, like someone learning to use a new app without a tutorial. The shift is small, but you feel it. Food is slowly becoming something more than survival. It's becoming performance, ritual, maybe even, dare you say it, pleasure. By now the meat's more tender. Someone figured out that soaking it in rice wine overnight breaks down the toughness. The result is soft, flavorful chunks that melt rather than fight back. A rare thing in these muddy centuries. Still no noodles. You've heard whispers, though. Travelers from the south, Champa people made me speak of rice ground into sheets, sliced into strips. But up here in the north, rice is for porridge, not for play. Your neighbor's daughter tries making the noodles anyway. She pounds the soaked rice, strains it through a cloth, steams it on banana leaves. It takes all day, and the strips fall apart in the broth. No one says it out loud, but it's disappointing. Like going on a date with someone whose profile picture was clearly 10 years old. The villagers don't give up. A man named Dome, who smells like smoke and always carries a chicken under one arm, starts experimenting. Less water, more pounding, some mysterious ash added for texture. Eventually, they get something close. It doesn't slither like modern pho noodles, but it holds its shape. And more importantly, it fills your stomach. The first bowl with noodles is chewed more than slurped, but no one complains. Not really. You're there when someone finally says it. We should call this something. The room goes quiet, then someone offers fun. Another says fun. That's face powder. A long silence. Someone snorts, we're not naming soup after makeup, but the name lingers. Gets misheard, repeated, warped. Fun, pho. It'll take decades to stick, but you just witnessed a linguistic accident that will feed millions. You don't know that, of course. You're just trying to finish your bowl before the flies land on it. And here's a fun fact no one will tell you. The first chopsticks weren't used for noodles at all. They were used to stir the fire. Food came later. You'd never guess it from watching that little girl, who's now flipping strips of buffalo meat in her broth like a gourmet chef. Even the elders have taken notice. They complain about the change, of course. Too soft, too fuzzy, too modern. But they finish their bowls all the same. Change creeps in quietly. Not in revolutions yet, but in morning meals. In awkward first attempts and stubborn persistence. The pot simmers, the noodles thicken, the sticks sharpen, and you're starting to crave this strange, evolving dish. It still has no name, but it's getting closer to something that tastes like the future. Outside, the sky fades from gray to blue, as if even the heavens are starting to come around to this whole twigs and soup idea. And as you settle back into your resting spot by the doorway, belly warm and breath slow, you realize something wonderful. You've just eaten the first awkward, chewy, slightly overcooked bowl of what will one day be called pho, and it wasn't even that bad. You open your eyes to the sound of crust cracking, a dry, unfamiliar sound like something ancient breaking open after years in the earth. Except it's not ancient, and it's not from the earth. It's bread. And not just any bread. It's long, lean, and unapologetically foreign. You are no longer in the mud-walled hut of buffalo broth dreams. You're somewhere colder, somewhere dustier. You're in France, and the year is hovering somewhere around 1791. The city smells like horses, smoke, and unresolved political tension. Also, yeast. Today's story isn't about pho, not even close. Today it's about the early stirrings of what will become the other half of our sleepy fusion, baguette. Now, the bread in your hands isn't quite the baguette yet. It's denser, wider, and not especially charming. Sort of like that one guy in your book club who insists on reading only Nietzsche, but you bite into it anyway. The crust shatters, loudly, like wake the neighbor loud, and the inside is chewy, dry, like it was made by someone who hates both softness and joy. Still, the people around you are treating it like gold, and in a way it is, because back then, flour was politics, bread was power, and the shape of the loaf, well, that was a matter of life and death. Literally, you overhear two bakers arguing in a tiny corner shop. One insists loaves should be short and fat, the other long and thin. It sounds like a metaphor, but it's not. One of them slams a doughy fist on the counter and mutters something about uniformity and fermentation. You don't understand all of it, but you catch the word steam baking to be specific. Apparently some wild genius has been injecting steam into ovens to create a crispier crust. You glance down at your loaf again, so that's why it sounds like a thunderclap when you bite it. And here's something strange. At this moment in history, the famous baguette doesn't even exist by name. It's more like a concept in progress, a whisper in flower. Some say the long loaf came from Vienna. Others claim it was made for convenience to fit better in the soldiers' backpacks during the Napoleonic Wars. Historians still argue about it. You know, like adults with degrees often do. You take another bite. Still loud, still dry, but it's growing on you. Sort of like a historical podcast that starts boring but somehow ends up on your top 5 list. Back on the cobbled streets, a horse cart rumbles by. Someone drops a basket of loaves and children pounce like it's a piñata. You help them scoop up a few, because why not? You're practically invisible in this time period anyway. Later that day, you follow a crowd into a tiny cafe. Everyone's breaking bread, literally. It's like a ceremony. Loud crusts, flaky explosions, and lots of jaw movement. No pain, no pickles, no chili sauce, just bread and water and teeth doing most of the work. You start to wonder, how did this toothsome weapon ever become the soft, flavor-packed carrier we know today? The kind that hugs meat and veggies and lives in greasy wax paper. Not here, not yet. Here, the baguette is still becoming. That night you lay in a narrow wooden bed beside a fireplace that doesn't quite heat the room. Your stomach is full, sort of. Your jaw is tired, definitely, and your mind is wandering, already dreaming of how this bread, this loud, unyielding stick of starch, might someday find its perfect match in a hot, fragrant bowl of soup thousands of miles away. But not tonight. Tonight it's just crust, and cold, and sleep. You wake to the sounds of shouting and marching boots echoing down narrow Parisian streets. The cobblestones are soaked with ambition and horse urine. It's early 1800s France, and while everyone around you is losing their minds over things like liberty, fraternity, and decapitations, you're thinking about bread, specifically how it keeps disappearing. You're shadowing a group of soldiers this morning, Napoleon's men. They're tall, well-dressed in scratchy wool, and deeply upset about the condition of their rations, not the lack of them, mind you. No, it's the bread. Again, always the bread. See, up until now, loaves are round, squat, and take up far too much room in soldiers' packs. One poor guy, Henry, has stuffed his under his hat like a sad, flowery helmet. Another tries tying a baguette-length loaf across his back like a saber. It breaks. Everyone pretends not to laugh. Bread is war, literally, because Napoleon, being the short-tempered logistical genius he was, wants a loaf that's long, easy to carry, and bakes faster. Rumors float through campfires that he once told his quartermasters, if my army marches on its stomach, stop giving it bricks. Whether or not he actually said that, well, historians still argue about it. They also argue about whether Napoleon was short, by the way. He wasn't. He was average. You're welcome. But back to the bread. You slip into a bakery, one of many springing up like mushrooms after a long, moldy rain. Inside, the air is warm with yeast and mild dissatisfaction. The baker is shaping dough into something new, longer, thinner loaves. He explains, mostly to himself, that these bake quicker, take up less space, and cool faster. Efficiency is king. He calls them French sticks. It doesn't sound very sexy, but then again, neither does pre-refrigeration field rations. Back in the army camp, the new loaves arrive. They are hard, narrow, and vaguely threatening. One soldier uses his to knock a wasp off a fellow's face. Another pretends it's a flute. But at dinner, when the loaves are cracked open, the crust sharp and resonant like a miniature cannon blast, there's silence. The crumb is soft enough. There's flavor. It works. You chew slowly. It's still not amazing, but it's better. The soldiers stop complaining, mostly. Henry wears his loaf like a scarf this time. Progress. And here's the weird part. This change in shape. It's not just about bread. It's about a country learning how to eat faster, move faster, conquer faster. The baguette, though still not called that, is becoming a symbol of motion, of mobility. Of men marching across Europe with long sticks of bread dangling from their hips like edible swords. You step outside as dusk settles over the camp. Fires crackle, uniforms dry on branches. Someone sings a song about missing home. You nibble the end of your now stale loaf and imagine a world where it's warm again, sliced open, filled with something rich. Maybe meat, maybe sauce, maybe someday. But for now, it's just crust and crumb. No butter, no paint, no future yet. Just soldiers, steam, and bread learning to be less terrible. You lean back against a barrel of pickled cabbage, the stars flickering dimly above, and your brain, soft, sleepy, and slightly gluten-heavy, starts to drift. Not to war, not to revolution, but to That curious crunch, that first bite, that awkward, dry, revolutionary snap. The air is sticky, not just humid, but sticky with salt, spice, and something unfamiliar. You blink, adjust to the sudden shift in sunlight, and realize you're standing at the port of Saigon, sometime in the late 1800s. There's chatter in Vietnamese, barking in French, and the smell of burning sugarcane rides the breeze like a ghost of breakfast past. This is not France anymore. This is Indochine. At least, that's what the French like to call it. People who live here, it's just home. Though lately it feels less and less like their own. You follow a group of colonial officers as they unload boxes from a steamship. Powdered milk, bottled absinthe, crates of bread, not baked, but ingredients, flour, milled in Marseille, wrapped in brown paper that's already damp from the voyage. The label reads something dramatic like Farine Superior. Somewhere behind them, a small, thin man watches quietly. His name is probably Tom, or maybe Luck. He's a cook, has been for years. But now he's hired to work in a colonial kitchen, and he's about to encounter his nemesis, French cuisine. You follow him through an alley that smells like dried squid and disappointment. Inside the villa, he finds his post, next to a polished oven, massive and alien, waiting to be used. The chef, a mustached Frenchman named Emile, who pronounces every Vietnamese word like it owes him money, points at the bag of flour and grunts, pan, baguette. Tom nods. He has no idea what that means. The first few days are chaos. The dough is too wet, the crust is too soft, the oven too hot. The bread comes out burnt, flat, or worse, not loud enough when bitten. Emile slaps the countertop. Tom burns his hands. Emile mutters something about savages. Tom contemplates slipping fermented shrimp paste into the stew. Progress. But then something happens. Tom watches Emile closely. He notices the steam trays, the resting times, the slashes made by razors just before baking. It starts to click. So one morning, very early, Tom tries it alone. He preps the dough, he lets it rise, he waits, and when the loaf comes out, it is strange. Not French, not Vietnamese, somewhere in between. It cracks, it sings. He tears it open and smells it. Wheat, smoke, maybe a hint of coconut oil from the wooden counter. He doesn't tell Emile, he brings it home. That night, his wife takes a bite and frowns. It's dry. He shrugs. It's French. But a week later, she's stuffing it with omelet and herbs because rice was short that morning, and, well, it's not like the bread is going anywhere. The neighbors come. They try. They don't hate it. Meanwhile, in the market, more flour arrives. More ovens are built. And slowly, without anyone realizing, the baguette starts to infiltrate the colony. Not as a guest, not as a master, but as a stubborn presence. Loud, chewy, curious. You walk through narrow streets where vendors slice loaves with rusty knives and sell them wrapped in banana leaves. The bread is different here, shorter, airier, often baked with rice flour to stretch it further. It flakes more than it cracks, but it belongs, or at least, it's trying. At one stall, a woman offers you a slice. It's warm. She smears something brown and soft on it, pâté apparently. It smells oddly comforting. You bite. The crust shatters, the filling melts, and for a brief moment, you're not in Saigon or Paris, you're somewhere new entirely. A hybrid place, a third culture, one no map could have drawn and no colonial officer could have imagined. It's not Banh Mi yet. It doesn't have pickles, or chili, or identity, but it wants to. Back at the villa, Emile is grumbling again. Why does the bread taste different? Tom doesn't answer. He just wipes the counter clean and bakes another. Because whether anyone notices or not, something is beginning. The baguette has landed, not as a conqueror, not as a souvenir, but as a blank slate, waiting for fish sauce. The heat clings to your skin like an overfriendly dog. The street is narrow, cracked, and buzzing with flies, gossip, and the rattle of tin bowls. You're in Hanoi somewhere in the early 1900s, and someone's arguing, loudly. You inch closer. Not because you're nosy though you are, but because the smell coming from the alley is magnetic. Charred bones, spice, maybe a hint of star anise. You follow it like a sleepwalker, weaving past shirtless men, oil-slick puddles, and the occasional chicken that definitely has opinions, and that's when you hear it. It's just pot au feu with noodles. Cue the gasp. You peer into a cramped, smoky space where two men are standing nose to nose. One is Vietnamese, lean, sharp-eyed, with hands stained from chopping scallions all morning. The other is French, rotund, red-faced, smelling faintly of wine and superiority. Between them, a pot, a steaming, fragrant pot. Inside it, broth, meat, bones, and noodles. The Frenchman, clearly insulted, jabs a finger toward the soup. It's a notre invention. You just added rice. The Vietnamese man shrugs. I don't eat it. A small crowd gathers, eating, smirking, pretending not to listen, but definitely listening. You sit quietly on a low stool, handed a bowl without asking. Inside, thin beef slices, soft white noodles, scallions, and a broth so aromatic it feels like your sinuses are being politely awakened. You take a sip, and immediately understand why they're fighting. This isn't just soup, this is something else, something bold, familiar, but also new. Like hearing a song you swear you've never heard before, but knowing every note. Let's rewind a little. You see, pot au feu, the French beef stew, is a slow-cooked comfort food. Bones, meat, veg, boiled forever. It's hearty, heavy, European to the core. When the French brought it to Vietnam, they probably expect gratitude. Instead, they got reinvention. Because the Vietnamese, ever resourceful, ever curious, took one look at the stew and thought, sure, but lighter, finer, with herbs, and better. So they strained the broth more carefully, used different cuts of meat, added ginger, shallots roasted over coals, and rice noodles, because obviously, the result, a soup that shares DNA with pot au feu, yes, but also something it could never be, refreshing, fragrant, elegant. Balanced like a tightrope walker holding a bunch of Thai basil. Back in the alley, the argument has devolved into a kind of passive-aggressive cooking duel. The Frenchman ladles out his stew, thick and brown, served with crusty bread and a grunt. The Vietnamese man dishes out his version, clear, aromatic, humming with warmth. You try both. One makes you sleepy, the other makes you sit up a little straighter. And then, just for fun, someone tears off a piece of baguette and dunks it in the pho broth. The Frenchman scoffs. The Vietnamese man raises an eyebrow. You're already chewing. It's weird, but not bad. Like two worlds trying to shake hands through your mouth. And here's the twist. This moment. It's not the birth of pho. That happened already, quietly, without drama, probably in a smaller pot. This is something else. This is the first time pho is accused of being unoriginal. The first time it's told it came from somewhere else. That it's not pure, not real. The first time food becomes identity. And you know what? Nobody stops eating. The Frenchman goes back for a second bowl. The Vietnamese cook smirks, adding a sprig of cilantro just to annoy him. You lean back on your tiny stool, feet barely off the ground, steam curling up into your eyelashes, and think they can argue all they want, but your bowl is empty, and your heart is full. Somewhere far in the future, people will still debate where pho came from. Historians will write about it, bloggers will fight about it, tourists will misunderstand it, but right now, right here, it's just breakfast, and it's perfect. The morning haze in Hanoi is heavier today, thick with charcoal smoke, the sharp tang of fish sauce, and the quiet hiss of something boiling in the back corner of a crumbling shop house. You've been following the sound of steel against wood, a rhythmic clack thunk that somehow cuts through the city's sleepy buzz like a heartbeat. You round a corner, and there it is, the first pho shop you've ever seen. It doesn't have a name, no neon sign, no menu, no branding, just a soot-stained tarp hanging over the doorway, one battered aluminum pot, and a man who moves with the precision of someone who's been doing this long before anyone cared to ask what signature broth meant. He's slicing beef thin, whisper thin, so thin the sunlight practically shines through it when he lifts a piece to inspect. His hands don't shake, his face doesn't change, he doesn't look at you, but he knows you're watching. Behind him, the pot bubbles with something that smells like memory. You're not given a choice. A bowl is placed in front of you before you sit. It's still steaming when your butt hits the stool. Noodles, white, coiled. Broth, clear but rich. A few slices of raw beef on top, cooking slowly in the heat. A handful of herbs, lime, chili. Nothing more, nothing less. You take a bite, and there it is. Pho, real pho. Not a draft, not a prototype. The first true version. It doesn't need to announce itself. It just is. No one speaks in the shop. The other customers slurp quietly, their eyes half closed, like they're listening to a lullaby. The owner refills the pot, adjusts the fire, skims fat off the top with the care of someone brushing duff dust off an old photograph. You look around, it's a mixed crowd. Workers with rolled-up sleeves, students with ink-stained fingers, a pair of women gossiping between mouthfuls. This isn't luxury, it's routine, a habit wrapped in broth and steam. But there's reverence here too, the kind people reserve for temples or grandmothers. You lean forward, curious. There's a second pot, smaller, rusting slightly around the handles. The old man sees you glance at it. He nods. Dollar Noito Tien. He says that's the first pot. Your heart thuds once. He doesn't elaborate. You picture it the very first time he made broth in that dented old thing. Probably over a coal fire, probably under pressure. Maybe it was just buffalo bones and salt. Maybe it failed. Maybe it didn't matter. Maybe this has all been practice. The bowl in front of you is a culmination. Decades of quiet experimentation, passed hand to hand, slurp to slurp. No recipes, no cookbooks. Just muscle memory and the kind of stubborn patience only a lifelong cook possesses. And here's a fact no one asked for. Early pho vendors didn't use measurements. They used rhythm. A handful of this, a pinch of that. Stir until it smells like the cold before tit. Add bones until the pot feels heavier than yesterday. Chefs today would have a meltdown. You take another bite. The beef is just barely cooked now, pink in the middle, delicate around the edges. The noodles cling to it like they've always known each other. It's unfairly good, not flashy, not insta-worthy, just right. A woman beside you finishes her bowl, stands, pays, leaves, all without saying a word. It feels like church. You stay seated, still halfway through, reluctant to break the spell. Outside, the city stirs. Bicycles squeak down cobbled roads. A vendor yells about guavas. Someone nearby sneezes 6 times in a row. Inside, the air stays still, warm, fragrant, sacred. Eventually, the cook glances at you, not impatiently, just knowing. He sees that you've tasted it, the truth. You nod. He nods back. And in that moment, no history book matters. No war, no debate, no invention. Just a bowl of soup. A silent agreement. This is pho now. It doesn't need explaining, it just needs eating. And your spoon, finally, scrapes the bottom of the bowl. The season changes without asking your permission. The air is thinner, colder, like it's been filtered through someone's memories of war and rationing. You walk through a Hanoi neighborhood that feels quieter than usual. Less laughter, more whispering. The paint on the walls is peeling like old bark, and the smell of broth in the air is less savory, more desperate. It's the 1940s and things are tight. Rice is scarce, meat is scarcer. And pho, well, pho is adapting. You follow the smell of soup down a side street where the lines are long but silent. People wait with their own bowls clutched to their chests like secrets. At the front of the queue, a woman ladles broth from a battered pot that hisses angrily each time she lifts the lid. You peer inside and, that's not beef, that's cabbage. A few wilted leaves float beside thin slices of banana blossom, some tofu, and was that a carrot or just an optimistic radish? You take your bowl and sit on a crumbling ledge nearby. The noodles are there somehow, but thinner than you remember. The broth is light, too light. You sip. It tastes like someone whispered the word meat over hot water. Still, it's warm. It fills your stomach. Across the alley, a man tears a page from an old French novel and uses it to wrap a few slices of stale bread. You watch him dunk the bread in the soup like it's the most natural thing in the world. The crust crumbles immediately, softening into a kind of accidental porridge. He nods at you, eyes tired but kind. You nod back, a quiet communion. You learn quickly that improvisation is survival. No beef. Use sweet potato binds. No onions. Use charred garlic tops. No spices. Boil the bones longer. No bones. Don't ask. Sometimes the broth is colored with soy, sometimes with roasted corn husks, sometimes it's just the color of hope. And yet people keep calling it pho. Not out of defiance, but out of memory. You hear 2 old women debating, is it still pho if there's no beef? Well, is a poem still a poem if it's sad? Poetic, but not helpful. Historians, of course, still argue about this period. Some say pho nearly died out, others insist it evolved. Still others claim it split in 2. Northern purity versus southern flair, like some culinary civil war. You just take another sip. It tastes better now. Or maybe your expectations have adjusted. At a stall nearby, a teenage boy experiments with something new. He adds soy sauce to his broth, a splash of vinegar, then tosses in a chopped chili. He smiles at the result. It's pho, but different. Someone scoffs. The boy shrugs. It's all pho. You walk past other pots that day. Some smell smoky, others vinegary. One even has noodles made from tapioca which wobble in the bowl like confused jellyfish. At night, in a one-room home dimly lit by an oil lamp, as a grandmother slices banana peels thin, grills them until crisp, and lays them over broth-soaked rice. She calls it pho too, and no one dares correct her, because what matters now isn't ingredients. cold, shifting world. You fall asleep on a woven mat with the smell of broth still in your hair and the faint taste of salted cabbage on your tongue. It wasn't the pho you imagined, but it held you through the day, and that has to count for something. Tomorrow, maybe someone will find a better bone or invent a new trick, but tonight you've tasted something honest. Thin, humble, imperfect, but still unmistakably pho. There's a bell ringing somewhere. Not a tempo bell. Sharper, metal on metal, short and bright, like a bicycle brake begging for attention. You follow it through the morning fog until the scent hits you. Beef bones, cinnamon, and exhaust. It's 1936, and pho has taken to the streets. Literally. You round a corner, and there it is, a bicycle customized to defy both physics and food safety. Balanced precariously across the back rack is a metal pot the size of a small child, bubbling away with broth. Steam rises from a loose-fitting lid. On either side, two baskets, one full of herbs, scallions, bowls, the other holding a jiggling tangle of fresh noodles and slices of beef, wrapped in banana leaves. The owner, a man in his 30s with rolled-up sleeves, a permanent sweat stain on his collar, and the calm of someone who's done this every day before sunrise. He rings the bell again, just once, clear and polite. Customers start to appear like ghosts, farmers, clerks, sleepy-eyed students with ink on their hands. Some carry stools, others just crouch. No tables, no menus, not even a sign. But the sound of that bell, that is the sign. You watch as he sets up shop without ever dismounting. One foot stays on the pedal. He lifts the lid, dips the ladle, warms the noodles in a net, scoops the broth with terrifying accuracy. The whole process takes maybe 20 seconds. And then suddenly, bowl. You're handed one. No one asks how you'll pay. No one even asks if you want it, because why wouldn't you? The broth is strong, not delicate anymore. It's been built for the open air, for wind, for dust and city noise. It's bold, a bit salty, made to wake people up, not lull them into poetry. You slurp. It's fantastic. The beef is just fatty enough, sliced in advance, and dunked just long enough to warm. The noodles are softer now, wider, made fresh just hours ago. There's a chunk of white scallion floating in your bowl like a boat lost at sea. You hear someone mumble, Banh Pho da homemade chunde. The roaming noodle guy got it right today. There's no Yelp, no reviews, just nods or bowls left half-eaten in passive protest. You notice the vendor adjusting the fire beneath the pot. It's tiny, a charcoal burner built into the bike itself, feeding the oil just enough to keep it going until noon. And when noon hits, he leaves, just like that. No lingering, no marketing, no tip jar. He douses the fire with a careful splash, hangs the bowls on a hook, and pedals away into the alley mist like some kind of soup-dispensing wizard. And just like that, pho becomes something new. Not just a home meal, not just a shop dish, but a sound, a moment, a bowl that finds you. You watch him go, the pot still steaming behind him, light bicycle wheels creaking slightly under the weight of the nation's favorite breakfast. Some people wave, most don't. Everyone just resumes their morning. And as you wipe the broth from your lip with your sleeve, because napkins don't exist here, don't even ask. The question drifts into your mind like the tail of steam left behind. What other dish can move this fast and stay this quiet? The answer, probably none. But pho doesn't need applause. Just a pot, a bell, and a road. And you fall asleep that night in a tiny attic room above a tailor's shop, still hearing that ring. Soft, bright, unforgettable, like a lullaby made of broth. The sun rises with a strange brightness today. Not golden, but buttery. You're in Saigon, somewhere in the early 1940s, and something smells French. Not colonial, not imposing, just decadent, rich, soft, almost flirtatious. You follow your nose into a small courtyard shaded by tamarind trees and find yourself behind the kitchen of a villa. White plaster walls, potted ferns, lazy ceiling fans trying their best. The cook is a middle-aged woman with quick hands and sharper eyes. Her name is probably Mai, and she's about to change street food forever. Accidentally, of course. You peer over the wooden counter as she slices open a fresh baguette, shorter and rounder than the ones you remember from Paris. The crust is still warm, and flakes of it cling to her fingers. She doesn't mind. She's holding something else. A tin. She pops it open with a dull tsk, revealing a brown, glossy paste. It glistens, smells earthy. Liver, maybe. Pâté. Imported. Probably. Stolen from the French pantry. Almost certainly. She spreads it generously, not delicately. This is not fine dining. The pate sinks into the warm crumb, melting slightly, marrying the bread like it's always belonged there. A few minutes later, her son, a wiry teenager with a slight limp and a hungry stare, returns from the market with nothing but a handful of pickled carrots and a bruised cucumber. She slices them thin, too thin, really, as if trying to stretch the moment. You expect her to serve it all on a plate, or maybe just eat it over the sink like people do when life is heavy. But no. She adds the vegetables to the bread, closes it, wraps it in yesterday's newspaper, and hands it to the boy. Just like that. Banh Mi was born. Well, not by name. Not yet. But this is the blueprint, the draft. The idea that French bread doesn't have to be eaten in silence, with wine and guilt. It can be grabbed, stuffed, shared, improved. The boy bites into it immediately, nods. It's good. He doesn't say it, but you see it in his face. He's gonna tell someone. Probably too many someones. And soon what was a clever substitution in a quiet villa kitchen will explode into something unstoppable. Later that day, he's at the riverfront selling loaves just like it. Banh Mi stuffed with pate, a sliver of omelette, maybe a pinch of pepper, wrapped quick, and sold quicker. The customers don't care that it's fusion, they care that it's affordable, that it's hot, that it fills the belly and leaves the hands free. And there's a little-known fact floating around in this period. French colonists hated seeing their food messed with. A sandwich with pickled daikon. Blasphemy. But the Vietnamese, they weren't trying to impress anyone. They were just hungry and smart and stubborn in the best way. By the end of the week, you count 5 street vendors selling some version of the sandwich. Each one a little different. Some with more greens, some with fish sauce. One brave soul tries adding a slice of grilled pork. You know how this ends. They don't. But you smile anyway, because you're watching the beginning of something rare. A food that doesn't come from a cookbook, or a chef, or a ruler, but from necessity, invention, and a little bit of rebellion. That night, back in Mai's kitchen, she slices another baguette, spreads another layer of pate. Her hands are faster now, confident. Her son hums a melody that has no words. The sandwich is still imperfect, but it works. It makes sense. And as you fall asleep curled up on a wooden bench beside the cooling oven, you think this is how legends start, with no plan, no name, just a crust, a smear, and a knead. You wake to the sound of chopping, not aggressive, not urgent, just steady, rhythmic, like a slow heartbeat made of bamboo and steel. You sit up, rub your eyes, and the first thing you see is a table covered in herbs, bundles of cilantro, spears of cucumber, and a single papaya looking unsure of itself. You're still in Saigon, but something's shifted. The baguette remains, so does the pate. But now there are hands everywhere, moving fast, layering, stacking, pressing. The sandwich is growing up. You scoot closer and watch a vendor, probably named Chin or Tu or something short and warm, assembling what can only be described as a miracle between 2 slices of crust. She moves like she's done this 1,000 times, because she has. The baguette is shorter now, more hollow, airier than its French ancestor, adapted, easier to fill, and fill it she does. First, the slather of pate, still there, still essential. Then comes a slick of mayonnaise, house-made, eggy, slightly tangy, nothing store-bought here. Then the meat, slices of Vietnamese chalua, a silky pork sausage with a bounce to it, followed by thin curls of roast pork, their edges caramelized, glistening with fish sauce and sugar. Then pickled carrot and daikon, bright, cold, vinegary, enough to wake you from a nap or a hangover or a bad decision. Cucumber slices follow. Then cilantro, fresh and reckless, sprigs sticking out like a rebellious haircut. She finishes with a dash of Maggi seasoning and a single slice of chili. Red, dangerous, optional, but not really. Then it's closed, pressed, wrapped, and handed over. You bite. The crust gives way instantly, shattering just enough to let your teeth in, but not so much that you lose your dignity. The pate hits first, creamy, earthy, then the heat from the chili, then the crunch from the pickles. Then, silence. Your brain just sits there for a second, stunned, because this isn't just lunch. It's a conversation between France and Vietnam, between rich and poor, between old and new, between people who've never met, but somehow understand each other. You finish the sandwich in 5 quiet bites. Not because you're in a rush, but because your hands refuse to pause. And here's a little known thing. The original Banh Mi didn't have cilantro. They crept in later, like an uninvited guest who turned out to be really good at parties. Some vendors even start to add fried eggs, grilled chicken, sardines, and tomato sauce from a can, even tofu. No one complains. Not seriously. There's too much joy wrapped in that wax paper to be mad about. You wander through alleys now, collecting bites, collecting stories. A grandmother insists the best Banh Mi has to be eaten leaning over a trash can to catch the fallout. A young man swears by extra pickles, no pate, and toasts the bread twice for that extra crunch. A child doesn't eat the vegetables, only the bread and meat, and calls it magic pork stick. Everyone's version is different, and everyone is right. Because Banh Mi, unlike its stiff French predecessor, bends to taste, to time, to weather, to whatever you have in the fridge. You sit by a small cart at the end of the market. The vendor is a woman in her 60s, eyes like polished stones, movements slow but precise. She hands you her version, just eggs, herbs, soy sauce, and chili salt. You don't ask for more. You take a bite. It's perfect. Later, in the shade of a banyan tree, you rest. Your hands still smell like vinegar and pepper. Your lips burn slightly from the chili, and your heart, it feels full. Not just from the food, but from the acceptance baked into it. The sandwich doesn't ask where you're from. It just asks how hungry you are. And you're always hungry for something dishonest. So you sleep, warm, quiet, dreaming of crust and crunch and all the ways bread can hold a country's soul. The wind shifts. Just a little. A soft southern breeze carrying scents you almost recognize. You open your eyes and the light feels different. Brighter. Warmer. Wetter. You're standing at a fork in a dirt road. There's no signpost, no traffic. But somehow, everything about this moment whispers that something is splitting. To your left, Saigon. Bustling, bold, already waking up to the sound of vendors hawking iced coffee, Banh Mi carts squeaking along the pavement, motorbikes coughing to life. To your right, Hanoi. Bolder, quieter, slower. The air feels heavier, like it remembers more. And the strange part is, both directions smell like pho, but they don't smell the same. You take a few steps toward the north, toward Hanoi. The broth here is darker, more introspective. It simmers longer, waits for you. It's careful, reserved. A monk in soup form, it whispers star anise, murmurs of fish sauce, and it never lets sweetness take over. The bowls are smaller, the noodles thinner. There's no chili sauce on the table, no lime either, just pickled garlic, a touch of vinegar, a handful of herbs chopped so modestly it feels like a secret. A man nearby tells you with absolute confidence, Pho fi tin te. Pho must be refined. You nod, sipping quietly, trying not to offend the bowl. Then you walk south, back to Saigon. The moment you arrive, the scent changes. Sweeter, louder, bolder. The broth is almost golden. You can see oil dancing on the surface like it's flirting. There's lime on the table, a mountain of basil, a pile of bean sprouts so large it might qualify as a vegetable rebellion. You sit. The bowl arrives, generous, theatrical. The beef is not just rare, it's practically posing in the center of the noodles. A squeeze of lime, a squeeze of sriracha, or maybe tilgut, a dunk of hoisin. You stir and it turns into a wild, beautiful mess. A teenager nearby slurps aggressively, wipes his mouth with his sleeve and grins. No one cares. Someone tells you pho nam phe damda. Southern pho must be bold. And now you're standing at the center of a culinary rift. Not war, not even a rivalry, just two ways of telling the same story. Like siblings who look nothing alike but both remember the same grandmother. And here's the twist. No one agrees which came first. Was it the quiet, thoughtful bowl of the north, or the lush, herbaceous dream of the south? Historians still argue. They're fun at parties. But the real answer, both are right, both are pho. You spend the afternoon hopping between stalls, sampling bowls like a sleepy judge in the world's slowest soup competition. At one, they add briskets so soft it dissolves before your teeth arrive. At another, they throw in tendon, chewy, jiggly, absurdly satisfying. Each bowl feels like a love letter, but with a different dialect. At night, you sit alone at a tiny table on a balcony somewhere between north and south, sipping tea and thinking, this isn't a rivalry, it's a divergence. A fork in the road. One goes left, one goes right, but both carry the same fragrance, the same bones, the same memory of a pot on a fire, the same instinct to take what was foreign, unfamiliar, colonial, and turn it into home. As you drift off to sleep, the smell of broth lingers on your clothes, in your hair, under your nails. You're not sure where you'll go next, but wherever it is, there will be soup, and it will be waiting. The sky hangs low, heavy with ash-gray clouds in the silence of a country holding its breath. You awaken in a cramped concrete kitchen somewhere along a forest trail not marked on any map. It's the 1950s, and the war has begun to cast its long, cold shadow across Vietnam. You're not in the city anymore. You're with the people who left it behind. Families who packed what they could carry and vanished into the hills, chasing safety, carrying recipes in their heads instead of in their hands. And this morning, in the middle of all that uncertainty, someone is making Banh Mi. Well, sort of. The flour is rationed. The fire is weak. The bread, it's been reconsidered. You watch a woman slice open a dense, oddly pale loaf that looks like a baguette but feels more like packing foam. She made it from a mix of wheat, rice flour, and sheer willpower. It doesn't crack when she cuts it. Its size. Next to her is a dented tin of canned pâté, its French label faded, the lid already stained with rust. She scoops out a tiny spoonful, spreads it like gold. Then comes a slice of boiled cassava, thin and starchy, a sprinkle of salt, a few leaves of wild herbs pulled from a nearby hillside. And just like that, lunch is ready. No pickles, no meat, no choices. But it's still called Banh Mi, because the name doesn't need permission from the ingredients anymore. It's become something bigger, a vessel, a ritual, a placeholder for better times. You sit cross-legged on the dirt floor, eating with a dozen others. No one says much. The sandwich tastes dry. The salt helps, the memory helps more. A boy bites into his and asks, "Is this how they eat in Saigon?" His mother replies without looking up, "No, but it's how we eat here." You nod, because that's the truth of wartime food. It doesn't pretend. It doesn't decorate. It sustains, and yet even here, even now, there's creativity. Later, you watch a man try something new. He grates green papaya, mixes it with fish sauce and chili, stuffs it into the same sad loaf. It's messy, too sour, a bit insane, but it works. It adds something. You see people begin to barter. Wild mushrooms for dried shrimp, bamboo shoots for pickled cabbage. Someone even roasts crickets, adds them for crunch. You're horrified. You're intrigued. You eat too. And here's a strange little truth. In the hardest moments of history, Banh Mi doesn't disappear. It adapts, it bends, it stretches. It shows up, even if only in spirit. Even if the bread is stale and the filling is wild imagination. At night, someone lights a small oil lamp. The wind outside moans through the trees like a warning. A woman passes you a wrapped package. Half a loaf, cold, filled with egg cooked on a piece of rusted tin. She tells you, "Save it for the road tomorrow." You hold it like it's fragile, like a letter from a future version of home. And you think, this isn't the Banh Mi people will remember, but maybe it's the one they'll never forget. As you curl up beside the fading fire, the smell of starch and salt still in your hands, your belly not full but not empty, sleep finds you slowly, and you dream of a crackling crust that's still years away, waiting patiently in a warmer, more peaceful version of Vietnam. The night is cold in a way that doesn't feel natural, not just from the weather, but from the silence, the kind that seeps through floorboards and refuses to leave. It's the 1960s, and though the war is still unfolding, something more subtle, more heartbreaking is happening in the kitchens of Vietnam. You're back in the north now, wandering the early morning streets of Hanoi, and something's missing. Pho is still here, sort of. The vendor is here too, standing behind her pot like a soldier, but the broth, it's clearer than usual, too clear, like a photograph that's been overexposed. You sit down and a bowl is placed in front of you without ceremony. You look inside, no beef, no tendon, no brisket, no tripe, no marrow-soaked anything, just noodles, a whisper of chive, a dot of floating oil that might just be your reflection. You take a sip. It's not bad, it's not good either. It's empty. Someone nearby mutters, "Pho chema." It's vegetarian pho. You glance the pot again. It's full of cabbage leaves, a few scorched onions, and the kind of bones that probably haven't seen meat since last tape. And here's the thing, this isn't a choice. This isn't a lifestyle, this is rationing. Beef is now almost mythological, spoken of like it's something only generals and ghosts get to taste. You hear stories about people trading watches for soup bones or standing in line for 6 hours just to get 2 slices of meat, thin enough to read through. So pho adapts. You see vendors invent workarounds, a splash of soy to darken the broth, a spoon of MSG to add punch, a secret stash of dried mushrooms for depth, boiled banana peel for chew. It works, kind of. But everyone knows this isn't that pho. Still, no one complains, because even a phantom of pho is better than none. You take another bite, more mindful this time. The noodles are perfect, made fresh at dawn, as always. The scallions taste sharper than usual. The vinegar-soaked garlic burns just enough to make you feel something. A woman across from you, wrinkles like folded maps, eyes like fog, smiles at her bowl as if it's a memory rather than a meal. You wonder what she's thinking. Maybe she remembers the real pho with rich broth and soft slices of rare beef. Maybe this bowl helps her pretend. Or maybe it's not about the ingredients at all. Maybe it's about keeping the ritual alive. And here's a quiet truth. Even when food becomes symbol more than sustenance, even when it fails to nourish the body, it can still feed the soul. Later that day, you pass by a black market vendor, half hidden in the doorway, whispering like a spy. "Kasun Ba," he says, "I have beef bones." He opens a basket to show them, wrapped in banana leaves, still wet from the river. You watch as someone buys 2 bones for the price of a week's wages and runs home like they've just stolen treasure. They have. That night, you follow the smell of a richer broth. Someone's managed it. A few scraps of meat, a dash more color in the pot. It's quiet, secretive. The bowl is passed hand to hand like contraband. You take a sip and close your eyes. It tastes like hope. The vendor leans in and whispers, "Chiban Balbandim, only sold at night." You nod. Because in a world where food is rationed, flavor becomes rebellion. A rich broth is no longer just a dish, it's defiance. You sleep that night in a cold corner near the railroad tracks, wrapped in a scratchy blanket and the memory of 2 bowls, one thin, one full. And as dreams gather around you like steam, one quiet thought lingers. Even when the beef disappears, even when the pot is nearly empty, pho remembers itself, and so do you. The heat is different here, less earthy, more electric. You wake to the buzz of ceiling fans slicing through a Saigon afternoon in 1968, where everything is louder, brighter, and humming with restless ambition. There's a radio playing something American in the distance. On the sidewalk, someone's painting a Coca-Cola sign over old French lettering. The war hasn't ended, but in this moment, it feels like everyone's pretending it has. And you're hungry again. You wander past motorbikes, soldiers, barbershops, and women in Aodai carrying baskets on bamboo poles. And then you spot it, a Banh Mi cart. It's metal, shiny. There's glass, neon lettering. Someone's even added a tiny umbrella for shade. And what's inside? Not pate, not just pork, there's butter. No, not the kind made from cream and French cows, the margarine kind. Bright yellow, out of a tin, imported, probably courtesy of American aid. Or maybe the black market. No one's saying, but it smells good, salty, toasty, wrong in the right way. You watch the vendor, a teenager in a baseball cap, slather it onto a split baguette, then slap in a slice of processed ham, a slice of American cheese still wearing its plastic confidence, and wait, pickles from a jar. He squeezes a line of red sauce from a bottle that says chili ketchup, then wraps it in wax paper printed with cartoon cats for no reason at all. It's Banh Mi. But it's also something else, something new. You buy one, bite, it's soft, tangy, a little trashy, delicious. You don't know what to feel, but your mouth doesn't care. And here's a strange little fact. In the late 60s and 70s, Saigon's Banh Mi began to Americanize, whether out of necessity or opportunism or just plain curiosity. Vendors started using ingredients from military surplus, embassy dumpsters, and PX shops. Tuna salad, spam, Kraft singles. Even coleslaw made it in somehow. At one stall, you watch a woman grill corned beef from a can, then stack it into a baguette with cabbage and mayonnaise. She calls it Banh Mi and charges double. People buy it anyway. Because in wartime Saigon, the line between survival and style is paper thin, and taste bends toward whatever keeps the stomach full and the heart distracted. You sit at a plastic table beside a man in a suit and a soldier in camouflage. Both are eating Banh Mi, different fillings, same crunch. The man in the suit tells you he remembers when Banh Mi didn't come with all this nonsense. The soldier shrugs. Tastes good though. No one wins the argument. Everyone finishes their sandwich. Nearby, a kid sells iced coffee with condensed milk, and you realize that this too is a remix, a mashup, a sweet cold caffeinated survival strategy. Everything here is shifting. The streets, the food, the language, the loyalties. But somehow the Banh Mi cart remains, adapting, absorbing, reflecting the city like a chrome mirror on wheels. That night, you eat a second one, this time with grilled chicken, cilantro, and a slice of cold hot dog. It shouldn't work, it does, and as the neon signs flicker on and the sound of distant helicopters mixes with karaoke in the alley, you lie back on a bench, the aftertaste of processed cheese still on your tongue. You fall asleep thinking, this isn't the banh mi your grandmother made, but it's the one Saigon needed, and it showed up right on time. The morning sun in Little Saigon, not Saigon proper, but the one nestled inside Westminster, California, crawls through the blinds with a kind of filtered optimism. It's the early 1980s, and you're sitting on a plastic chair in front of a strip mall, watching the first generation of Vietnamese refugees try to feed a new world. The smell hits you first. Not grilled cheese, not McDonald's, not pancakes, but bread. Warm bread, Vietnamese bread. You look up, the sign reads, Lee's Sandwiches. Yes, that Lee's, but not the one with the fancy blue logo and 20 flavors of smoothies yet. No touchscreen kiosk, no point-of-sale system, just a humble little bakery with a glass case, a handwritten menu, and a stack of baguettes that don't quite look French anymore. They're shorter, lighter, crispier, baked on site with rice flour in the mix because wheat's expensive and Vietnamese crust's got a crack. Inside the shop, the owners are moving fast. Mom at the register, dad behind the counter, and kids doing everything else. There's a rhythm to it. Slice, smear, stack, wrap, ring. Hundreds of banh mi's flying out the door before the customers even know what they want. You see office workers, college kids, old veterans in baseball caps, Latinos from down the street, and Korean aunties who ask for extra spicy without flinching. No one blinks, because in Little Saigon, banh mi is bilingual. You get in line, not because you're hungry. You're always hungry at this point in the story, but because you want to see what's changed. And what's changed? Almost everything. The bread, thinner crust, fluffier inside. The meat now includes grilled chicken, turkey, even meatballs. The spread, sometimes butter, sometimes mayonnaise, occasionally both. There's a self-serve bin of jalapenos, not bird's-eye chilies. Why? Because this is California, and jalapenos are easier to find than memories. Someone next to you orders a number 3 without blinking. You look at the menu. Number 3 is cold cuts, extra bait, pickled veggies, and a splash of Maggi. Classic. You order one too. You're handed a white paper bag, already slightly transparent from steam and meat oil. You sit down on the curb and bite. It's America and Vietnam in one mouthful. The bread cracks, the pate melts, the pickles crunch. The jalapeno lights a tiny fire at the back of your throat that makes you smile through watering eyes. You're not the only one smiling. The owners, they're watching from behind the counter, quietly counting not just cash, but progress, one sandwich at a time. Here's a little known fact. These didn't start with banh mi. They started with ice cream and motorbikes, trying to survive like everyone else. Banh mi was plan B. Turns out, plan B fed a diaspora. You wander down the strip mall later, full in a way that's not just about food. There's a Vietnamese pharmacy, a jewelry store, a video rental place that only stocks Paris by night and dubbed Jackie Chan movies. You could be anywhere, but you're here. A little piece of Vietnam rebuilt with bread and hustle. Later that day, you see a schoolgirl in uniform holding a banh mi in one hand and a Coke in the other. She's speaking English, but her lunch is fluent in both languages. She takes a bite. You watch her chew, nod to herself, and keep walking. No ceremony, no nostalgia, just lunch. And you realize this is the dream, not the sandwich, but what it lets you carry without letting go. So you sit back in the fading light, bag crumpled beside you, and smile at a world where banh mi doesn't need explaining anymore. It just needs wrapping paper and a price tag. And maybe, if there's time, a napkin for the chili oil. The morning starts with the clang of a spoon against a ceramic bowl, the sound of someone testing the broth, adjusting the heat, and muttering something about it being too clean. You're not in Vietnam anymore, not exactly, but you're not far from it either. You're in Little Saigon again, or maybe San Jose or Houston or Arlington, Texas, anywhere the air is thick with old language and new ambition. It's the late 1980s, and something strange is happening. Pho has arrived in America, but it didn't come by boat or plane. It came in memories, folded into the minds of families who carried nothing but stories and hands that remembered exactly how long to boil bones. You're in a strip mall again. They all look the same. Cracked parking lots, flickering fluorescent lights, a dentist's office next to a nail salon, next to a restaurant that smells like home. Except the home is different now. You step inside, the sign above the door reads Pho 75, or Pho Hua, or Pho Bang. They're all slightly different and basically identical. You sit, no menu, just numbers. A waitress asks Pho Thai, Chin, Hey Gun. You blink, she switches to English. Rare steak, well done, tendon. You order. You don't even need to think about it, it's already in your blood. The bowl arrives, and instantly you know this is not the pho from Hanoi, and it's definitely not Saigon's either. This is diaspora pho built from available ingredients, sharpened by taste memory and held together by the sheer will to remember. The broth is richer, meatier, cooked longer, because Americans expect bold flavors, and Vietnamese Americans are more than happy to deliver. You add lime, you add basil, you add bean sprouts and sriracha and hoisin in the exact ratio that feels like family. Then you slurp, and everything goes quiet. You look around. A man in a dusty Raiders cap is hunched over his bowl. A woman is feeding her toddler noodles with chopsticks. A teenager in a school uniform is texting with one hand and balancing a spoon with the other. And across the room, an old man sits alone, staring into his broth like it might say his name back to him. You learned something important that day. In America, pho isn't just food, it's proof that you made it, that you stayed, that the culture didn't dissolve in processed cheese and Pop-Tarts, that you could take something as fragile as aromatic broth and rebuild it, even thousands of miles from the streets it first steamed from. And here's a lesser-known fact. Most early pho in the U.S. was Southern style. Why? Because most of the refugees were from the South. That means more herbs, more lime, more sauces on the table, more unapologetic flavor. But slowly, something interesting happens. Fusion. Someone starts using local beef cuts. Another switches the noodles to match what's available from a Thai supplier. Someone else throws in oxtail just to see if it works. It does. A teenager invents pho dip, a baguette dipped in broth like its French dip's cooler cousin. You taste that too. And yeah, it slaps. Back in the kitchen, the cook is adjusting the pot again. He looks tired, proud, stubborn. He's not a chef. He's an architect of comfort, building bowls that are safe houses for a scattered people. He doesn't care about Michelin stars. He just wants the broth to taste like his mother's did, or close enough to trick the memory. And maybe that's the whole point. Pho in America doesn't try to be pure, it just tries to survive. Comfort to carry forward. As the shop fills with steam, conversation, and the occasional awkward slurp, you sit back, your bowl half empty, and realize pho crossed an ocean, and it never spilled. And as you leave, the chime of the door fading behind you, the broth still warm in your chest, one last thought lingers. Even far from home, pho knows where it came from. And now, so do you. The street outside is lined with red maple trees, their leaves crisping in the early frost. You're far from Vietnam now, Montreal maybe. Or Toronto, could be Melbourne too. The sidewalk is cracked. The air smells like coffee, cold air, and bagels. But inside the shop you've just stepped into, it smells like bread baking in a language it didn't grow up speaking. It's a Vietnamese bakery, but not the kind you're used to. This one looks upscale. There's a chalkboard menu with hand-lettered fonts, a display case with glossy pastries, and soft indie music floating from hidden speakers. The staff wear matching aprons. Someone's frothing oat milk in the back. You blink. Then you see it on the far end of the counter. Banh Mi baguettes, golden, perfectly shaped. But there's something different. You lean in, and that's when you realize this bread was made here, from scratch, by a Vietnamese baker in Canada. He comes out from the back, flour on his apron, arms dusted like he's just high-fived a ghost. He's younger than you expected, smiling, calm, like someone who's quietly decided that the best way to honor tradition is to mess with it a little. You ask him where he learned to bake. He says, my dad made pho, I wanted to do bread, but I couldn't use their baguettes. You know, too soft, too chewy, no snap. So he taught himself, watched French videos, read Vietnamese forums, burned thousands of loaves. Eventually he found it, the right mix of wheat and rice flour, a crisp shell, a light interior, the kind of crust that breaks like glass when you press your thumb into it, and then, just because he could, he added fish sauce to the dough. You stare, just a little, he says, laughing, barely noticeable, but it's there. You taste it and you feel like something's different, like you're eating home by accident. order a Banh Mi? Of course you do. This one's filled with lemongrass beef, pickled daikon, a handful of arugula, and a house-made chili mayo that probably caused a few traditionalists to faint when it first hit the menu. You take a bite, and the bread, it cracks like a firework, like a memory, like it's always wanted to be broken by you. The fish sauce hits faintly at the end, like a voice calling from another room. The arugula bites back. The beef is rich, like it knows what it's doing. And the whole thing comes together in a way that shouldn't work, but absolutely does. You chew slowly, not because you're unsure, but because you want to remember every second. Here's something you didn't expect to learn today. Banh Mi doesn't just adapt the fillings, it adapts the bread. It absorbs the air of its country, the flower of its fields, the weather of its new home. And still, it remembers what it's supposed to become. In the corner of the bakery, the little girl is watching her father shape loaves. Her hair is tied up in a bun. Her fingers are covered in dough. She's trying not to smile. You realize this is what resilience looks like. Not just surviving, but thriving, expanding, inventing, improving. That night you walk back through streets dusted with snow and old French signs. The cold nibbling your ears, the warmth of the baguette still in your hands. You pass pizzerias, shawarma joints, ramen shops, but none of them hit the same way. Because that loaf, that one you just ate, it wasn't just Banh Mi. It was Banh Mi that speaks 3 languages, has dual citizenship, and still calls its grandma every Sunday. And as the wind picks up and your breath turns visible, you can't help but grin. Home isn't where you're from. It's where your bread cracks just right. You wake to the sound of rustling foil. Not birdsong, not temple bells. Just the unmistakable crinkle of instant noodles being opened. It's the early 1990s and you're in a fluorescent-lit kitchen somewhere in the heart of post-Doi Moi Vietnam. Or maybe a dorm room in California or a shared flat in Berlin. The location doesn't matter anymore because what sits before you on the table is a packet of pho. Not a bowl, not a pot, just a packet. Pho and Lin, instant pho. You stare at it, confused, intrigued, appalled, hungry. The packaging screams flavor with an enthusiasm only artificial beef powder can conjure. A smiling bowl of soup beams up at you like it's proud to be 97% preservatives. You boil water, tear open the wrapper. Inside, a nest of dehydrated rice noodles, 2 plastic sachets, and a sad pouch of grayish oil that smells like a memory that's been through customs. You pour, stir, wait. A few minutes later, it's ready, and just like that, you're holding pho without context. No steam rising from a dented pot, no old man skimming fat with the patience of a monk. No street corner, no lineage, just foam cup and fork, no herbs in sight. You slurp. It's fine, salty, familiar, hollow in a way that doesn't offend, but doesn't impress either. You add lime juice, some chili sauce, a slice of leftover meat from the fridge. It improves, a little, and that's when it hits you. This isn't supposed to be pho. Not really, it's a postcard, a hologram, a late-night phone call from the real thing. But still, somehow, it comforts you. And here's the weirdest part, it explodes in popularity. College kids love it, truck drivers live on it, office workers microwave it between meetings, refugees hoard it in their cupboards like edible time capsules. Pho, once a communal ritual, is now a solo performance. Quick, disposable, forgettable, or is it? It's across the ocean. In Vietnam, something's happening. Factories begin cranking out instant pho by the ton. Flavors multiply. Pho bo go, pho thai, pho ga. Even vegetarian versions show up, flavored with soy and powdered nostalgia. Commercials air on TV. Jingles get stuck in people's heads. Kids start recognizing pho not by the smell of broth, but by the color of the packet. And while purists cry foul and shake their ladles in rage, something undeniable unfolds. Pho is no longer confined to the pot. It's become portable, scalable, survivable, and here's a fun little contradiction. Instant pho tastes like everything pho isn't. It's quick, it's mass-produced, it's made to meet a quota, not an emotion, and yet people keep eating it. Because sometimes you don't need the full orchestra, sometimes you just want the melody. You finish your bowl, the broth's thin, the noodles slightly too soft, the oil lingers on your lips a second too long. Still, you're warm. Still, you remember. And that's the thing about pho, even when reduced to powder and plastic, it whispers. It says you're not alone. You're still Vietnamese. You still know what this is. As you toss the cup into the trash and flick the light off, you think, this wasn't pho. but it was close enough to get me through tonight, and sometimes that's all pho has ever needed to be. It's sometime in the early 2000s, and you're standing in a cramped studio kitchen, watching a college student perform a quiet act of genius. She's barefoot, wearing an oversized hoodie, surrounded by textbooks and ramen wrappers, and in her hand is a day-old baguette, slightly limp, slightly stale, the kind that usually ends up in the trash or turned into croutons. But she's doing neither. She opens the fridge, pulls out a few slices of leftover pho beef wrapped in foil, a bottle of Nook Mum, some scallions, a plastic container of sriracha that's more crust than sauce, and then, this is the moment she slices open the bread, dumps the meat inside, and reaches for a ladle. From a saucepan on the stove, she pours hot pho broth directly into the baguette, like it's some ancient family secret. The bread hisses, the meat sighs. She adds scallions, squeezes the sriracha, and closes it all up like it's totally normal. You stare, she takes a bite and doesn't fall apart. The bread soaks just enough, the meat reborn, the broth reduced to essence, soaked into the crust like perfume into a scarf. You ask her what this is. She shrugs, didn't have a bowl. And there it is. Banh Mi Pho. Not in a cookbook, not in a restaurant, not even on purpose. But once you've seen it, you can't unsee it. It makes too much sense. The chew of baguette, the depth of pho, the convenience of not needing a spoon. You try it the next day, with brisket this time. Add some hoisin, a handful of bean sprouts, and suddenly you're chewing a portable pho. A walking broth dream, a sandwich with a soul. Word gets out, first among students, then among food bloggers, then on message boards with blurry photos and all caps captions like, open quote, yo, I stuffed pho into bread and it slaps, close quote. Some call it a pho sandwich, others call it wrong. But wrong doesn't last long in a world this hungry for something new. Soon it shows up at a night market in Los Angeles. A vendor toasts the baguette first, adds rare steak, chili mayo, pickled red onions, and a side of hot broth for dipping. The sign reads, Banh Mi Pho, Fusion AF. The line down the block. A month later, someone in New York does it with brisket burnt ends. In Austin, they smoke the beef first. In Melbourne, they put pho broth jelly inside a steamed bun. And here's the quiet part no one says out loud. This isn't sacrilege, it's evolution. Because pho and banh mi were never meant to stay apart forever. They've danced around each other for a century, sharing tables, flavors, histories, and now they're sharing a crust. You eat your third banh mi pho in as many days, this time with extra herbs and a little garlic vinegar drizzled in. The bread crunches, the meat sings, the broth, even reduced to dampness, still speaks. It says this wasn't supposed to work, but it does, and it's glorious. That night you fall asleep with crumbs on your chest, thinking pho didn't become banh mi didn't become pho, but somewhere in the messy middle, they met and made magic. It's hot, but not the kind of hot that melts you. It's the kind of hot that makes everything smell stronger. Spices, charcoal, ambition. You're at a food festival in Brooklyn sometime around 2012, surrounded by food trucks with ironic names and menus printed on recycled cardboard. There's a kombucha stand, someone's deep frying avocados. A man with a tattoo of Julia Child is selling deconstructed Caesar salads in mason jars. You're about to leave when you spot it, a sign, hand-painted in bold red strokes. Pho burger, East meets beef. You pause, you blink, you question your life choices, but curiosity as always wins. The guy at the booth is wearing a backward cap, a sleeveless hoodie, and an apron that says Brothers Boss. He hands over a burger with both pride and caution, like he knows this might either change the game or haunt your dreams. You take it, and there it is, a beef patty infused with garlic, ginger, a whisper of star anise, caramelized onions cooked down in fish sauce, sriracha hoisin mayo, fresh Thai basil and cilantro piled on like leafy confidence. And the kicker, a soft toasted bun made with a hint of rice flour, designed to echo a banh mi crust but burger friendly. You bite, and it's not just a burger, it's a memory cosplaying as fast food. Your brain flips through taste files like an old librarian. Is this pho? Is this banh mi? Is this both? Is this blasphemy? Doesn't matter, because it's working ridiculously well. You chew, stunned as the spice builds, the herbs cool, the umami anchors, and somehow, in the chaos of melting cheese and Vietnamese flavor cues, your tongue starts laughing. You turn to the cook. What even is this? He grins. It's pho. If pho wanted to be eaten with fries. Here's a fact no one asked for. The pho burger started as a joke. A late-night college experiment by two second-gen Vietnamese kids in Orange County who were sick of defending fish sauce and decided to weaponize it instead. It went viral, then it went literal. Now it's here, in New York, in London, in Seoul, served with pickled slaw and a side of cultural confusion. Food writers call it inventive. Old aunties call it disrespectful. You call it lunch. And somewhere, in a tiny kitchen in Vietnam, the grandmother slices onions for pho and sneezes. The butterfly effect of beef. The line gets longer behind you. You hear a guy in a Supreme hoodie say, "Yo, it's like a Banh Mi got drunk and made out with a Shake Shack." He's not wrong. You finish the burger. Your fingers are slick with broth-infused fat and spicy mayo. Your soul is confused but satisfied. And as you wipe your hands on a napkin that says half fusion AF, a strange thought bubbles up. This isn't dilution. It's expansion. Pho isn't shrinking. It's flexing. It's showing up in forms nobody expected. Speaking new dialects. Playing with new textures and still somehow carrying that same core. Warmth. Boldness. Bones and herbs and the bravery to be different. You leave the booth a little fuller, a little messier, a little more convinced that food doesn't just travel. It transforms. And that night, as you lay in bed with indigestion and joy battling for control of your stomach, you murmur, "Yeah, I'd eat that again." The clouds are low over Dalat today, brushing the rooftops like lazy fingers. The air smells like pine trees, roasted coffee, and, oddly enough, melted cheese. You're standing in front of a glass cart parked beside a foggy sidewalk cafe. There's no line, just a high school student with bleached hair and Bluetooth earbuds, flipping bread on a portable grill with the kind of confidence that says, "I know exactly what I'm doing, and no, I don't care what your grandma thinks." Welcome to the era of Banh Mi mutation. On the cart are loaves, soft, toasted, pillowy. Some are sliced open like usual. Others are flattened, almost pressed, as if they gave up being traditional baguettes and decided to become streetwise paninis. You look at the toppings, and then you squint. Salted egg yolk, mozzarella, Chinese sausage, Kewpie mayo, dried shredded pork, spicy oil with 5 spice, and is that a scoop of cream cheese? You take a deep breath. You order one anyway. He smears a bright orange egg yolk sauce inside, adds grated mozzarella, a drizzle of butter, and condensed milk, yes, together, then throws in a handful of crispy pork floss like he's casting a spell. He grills it, presses it, flips it, and hands it over with a grin. The first bite is confusing. The second, less so. By the third, you're hooked. It's salty, creamy, rich, fluffy, crispy. All the textures at once. All the flavors you didn't expect. It doesn't taste like banh mi, and yet somehow it does. This isn't the pho-infused sophistication of Saigon or the pickled harmony of a classic sandwich. This is chaotic good, a sugar-crusted evolution that belongs to a younger generation. The TikTok kids who don't remember the war but remember their mother's breakfast sandwich and aren't afraid of cheese. And here's the quiet truth. This isn't about authenticity anymore. It's about joy. About reclaiming a food that once came from colonizers and turning it into something so unrecognizably local, it leaves tourists blinking in disbelief. You watch an older man approach the cart. He squints at the menu. Go banh mi at home. Got the classic pork one. The kid shakes his head. "Da, Hindroid. Sorry, sold out." The man frowns, orders a mozzarella one instead. Bites, nods, no words exchanged, but a quiet acceptance. Banh mi changes, that's the point. Later, you wander the misty streets, belly full of cheese and confusion, passing other carts with signs advertising. Banh mi, ball so tio dan, black pepper beefsteak sandwiches. Banh mi, tring mui tan shai, melting salted egg lava banh mi. Banh mi, so ring fo mai, durian cheese. And yes, you read that right. Each one a remix, a dare, a wink at tradition while wearing neon sneakers. And somewhere tucked between those foggy alleyways and teenage grills, you realize banh mi isn't sacred. It's alive. It doesn't need your approval, only your appetite. So as night falls and the pine trees exhale your like egg yolk from your fingers and whisper, "Okay, that was weird, but weird can be wonderful." The sound of oil popping wakes you before the sun does. It's early, pre-dawn Hanoi, the kind of quiet that only lasts until motorbikes return to the streets. The air is cool, the city hushed, and you're watching a man in a white tank top toss something into a wok that sizzles with the ferocity of invention. You thought you were here for pho, but there's no broth, no pot, No steam. There's just the smell of soy, garlic, scallions, and something fried. You're witnessing the next phase in this soup's second life. Pho that got bored of being wet. The man lifts a pan of bubbling oil and into it he slides a sheet of rice noodle. Not the soft ribbon kind you're used to, but a square cut thick and proud. The noodles hit the oil and immediately crisp, curling into golden edges that look like something between a pancake and a dream. Welcome to Pho Chien. Fried pho. Pho gone crunchy. He lifts the crisp noodles and lays them flat on a plate, then tops them with a rich stir-fry of beef, onions, and vegetables, thickened in a glossy gravy that wobbles with intention. You take a bite, and it's not soup anymore, but the flavor is still there, beefy, spiced, familiar. Like pho, just put on a different outfit and stepped into a louder room. Later that day, you try pho corn, noodle sheets rolled like spring rolls, packed with herbs and beef, dipped in fish sauce. Then comes pho tron, dry pho tossed with garlic, soy, vinegar, and chili. Pho sao, pan-fried with vegetables like stir-fry. Pho ap chow, seared into crispy-edged cakes. You sit back, halfway through a plate, and think, pho has officially left the bowl. Here's the secret no one tells you. The Vietnamese don't just love pho, they play with it. They remix it, fold it, press it, turn it inside out. And the result, a menu made entirely from the ghost of soup. But it's not just about fun. It's about necessity, because soup is expensive, bones are slow, gas is costly, but noodles are eternal. So pho reinvented itself, not out of boredom, but out of resilience. You meet a woman who sells only pho kuon out of her courtyard. She rolls every sheet by hand at 4 a.m., humming the same tune each day. She tells you, pho nuk phai cho, can lin. Soup takes time. This, you eat right now. You nod. She's not wrong. At a night market, someone hands you a pho tron with beef jerky and green papaya. It's absurd. You eat too. And there's this lingering idea rolling in your chest as you chase the last bite. What if soup isn't the end of pho? What if it was only the beginning? Because now pho moves without boiling. It crunches, it folds, it goes with you. You fall asleep that night in a hotel with flickering power, the scent of garlic still on your fingertips, dreaming of noodles that refuse to stay in their lane. And the echo of soup that somehow keeps getting louder even without the broth. You wake to the soft buzz of neon in a Tokyo back alley where vending machines outnumber trees and silence is curated like art. It's sometime around 2018, though time feels slippery here. The sky's behind sliding doors and steam. And what's that smell? It's not ramen. It's pho, but not the pho you expect. You turn the corner and there it is, a tiny shop wedged between a karaoke bar and a 7-seat yakitori joint. The sign reads, in careful Japanese katakana, pho, pho. Inside it's standing room only. A soft hum of jazz plays with the sound of chopsticks clinking ceramic bowls. The man behind the counter wears a black bandana and a serious expression. A third-generation soba chef turned pho evangelist. He doesn't speak much, he just serves. You order what's listed as la tai pho, cold pho, excuse me. He nods solemnly as if reading your reaction. The bowl arrives, no steam, just chilled broth, clear and golden, poured over cold noodles, topped with rare beef that's not cooking, just lounging. Beside it, slices of cucumber, a hint of lime zest, a sprig of shiso, and a swirl of chili oil so delicate it might as well be calligraphy. You slurp. Your brain takes a moment to adjust. Your mouth throws a party. The broth is still rich, bone-deep flavor, but icy. The chill sharpens everything. The herbs sing louder, the lime bites harder, the meat feels silkier. You've just met pho in kimono. It bows politely, but it doesn't apologize for being different. Later, you try the pho toasty next door, a grilled sandwich with brisket and pho gravy served on Japanese milk bread. Then a Banh Mi sushi roll from a food truck in Shibuya, stuffed with pickled carrots, pork belly, and wrapped in seaweed. Fusion, yes, but not messy, precise, respectful, crafted by chefs who understand that food isn't just a recipe, it's a language, and they've become fluent in multiple dialects. And here's the secret that settles into you as you walk beneath glowing paper lanterns and the soft echo of vending machine music. Pho didn't lose itself here. It found a new expression. It discovered that broth doesn't always have to be hot, that beef doesn't always need to cook, that flavor can be whispered as well as shouted, and the Japanese, with their love of quiet beauty, understood. They didn't just adopt pho, they listened to it. back in your capsule hotel, under a blanket that feels like a warm envelope, you replay the bite in your mind. Cold, clean, bold. And you think, pho isn't just adapting anymore, it's collaborating. And every new bowl in every new country is a conversation between cultures that once kept quiet. Now they're cooking together, and somehow the broth always finds its way. It's early evening and the lights are warm in the way only debate panels and talk shows can make them. Harsh but inviting, like they're daring you to have an opinion. You're sitting in the back row of a small studio somewhere in downtown Hanoi, watching three people argue politely over a topic that somehow feels more loaded than politics. What is real pho? One panelist, an older chef with hands like cast iron and a voice that could melt marrow, leans in. Pho must be clear, subtle, no hoisin, no sriracha, no herbs drowning the bowl. The audience nods, a few clap. Across from him, a younger woman, maybe in her 30s, hair dyed aubergine, wearing oversized glasses and sneakers with a Vietnamese flag on them, scoffs. And that's your pho. That's northern pho. Come to Saigon, we let flavor breathe. Lime, herbs, sweet broth, fish sauce. That's pho too. The moderator chuckles nervously. Well, is there a right version? Silence. Then a third panelist, an academic-looking man holding a stack of hand-annotated photocopies of menus from 1920s Hanoi, says, well, technically the earliest printed reference uses the word pho to describe a dish of boiled buffalo with noodles and a sprinkle of vinegar. You stop listening after that, because behind the sounds, the research, and the regional pride, you hear the thing that matters most. Everyone's fighting because they care. And here's the irony. Pho has never been one thing. It was bone broth, then beef soup, then southern brunch, then exile comfort, then street staple, then fancy Instagram moment, then instant noodle, then art, then scandal. So why are people still arguing about what's real? You leave the panel, it's raining lightly outside, of course it is, and you follow the scent of broth toward a vendor with a plastic sheet for a roof and a fire that's still fueled by wood. He asks no questions, he just makes your bowl. And in it, northern-style noodles, southern-style broth, a spoonful of fried shallots, 2 slices of brisket, 1 lime wedge, and a sprig of basil that no one asked for, but no one will take out either. You eat, slowly, thoughtfully. You taste Hanoi's clarity, you taste Saigon's chaos, you taste the quiet rebellion of fusion and the deep roots of tradition. Across from you, a tourist adds 4 squirts of sriracha and a full spoon of sugar. His friend watches in horror. The grandfather, 2 stools over, slurps quietly, ignoring them both. And that's when it clicks. Pho isn't about being correct, it's about being remembered. It's a bowl with 1,000 fingerprints, a dish that never needed a recipe, just a reason. And every time someone argues about it, they're not protecting it, they're proving it matters. You leave the table, full, unbothered, uncertain, because the truth is, pho doesn't need defending. It just needs serving. You're somewhere in Berlin, though the street signs are only half the clue. The other half is the weather. Gray skies, a scent of diesel, and the sound of bicycles gliding over wet cobblestone. You step into a warm space off a quiet Kreuzberg street where techno thumps faintly from the ceiling vents and the chalkboard outside reads, Pho X Art. Comfort reconstructed. Welcome to the gallery. Inside, polished concrete floors, spotlights, minimalist furniture, and in the center, an installation made of porcelain bowls, hand-cut chopsticks, and something dripping slowly from above like time condensed. You're told this is a deconstruction of pho. You smile. Of course it is. Next to it, a digital screen plays slow-motion footage of bone marrow being lowered into a simmering pot. The audio is layered, spoon scraping, broth bubbling, whispers of interviews in Vietnamese and German overlapping like languages meeting in a dream. In the corner, a long communal table is being set for what the artist calls a multi-sensory performance meal. You sit, you don't know what you signed up for. The first course arrives. A spoon of faux consommé, served in a shallow ceramic dish the size of your palm. Clear, intense, like broth that's been through therapy and emerged clarified. Then, a tiny baguette cube, crispy outside, soft inside, dusted with freeze-dried fish sauce powder. You taste it, you blink, you don't know if it's genius or a prank. Possibly both. Later, there's a broth-scented fog released over a plate of rolled rice sheets filled with pickled beet and wagyu tartare, A server dressed like a lab tech explains how this represents the diasporic reimagining of culinary memory. You just nod and chew. And the thing is, beneath the flair, the foam, the spectacle, it's there. Pho, its echo, its intention. The flavor that knows how to whisper through even the most avant-garde architecture. You sit beside a Berlin native who's never had pho in a plastic stool on a Hanoi sidewalk, and across from a Vietnamese German DJ who says her grandmother still insists MSG is a vitamin. The table hums with languages, forks, chopsticks, questions, laughter. Here's what you learn. Pho has entered the art world, and it refuses to behave. Because here it's not just dinner, it's commentary, medium, memory on a white plate. And the artists, they're not claiming to recreate pho. They're asking, what does pho mean when it has no borders? When it becomes performance, not just nourishment? When it's served with a poem, a projection, a soundscape? You could roll your eyes, or you could listen. Because pho has always told stories. Now it tells them with subtitles, smoke machines, and Michelin stars. But it's still pho. The same soup that once fed soldiers, students, factory workers, refugees. Now feeding conversation. You leave the gallery full, not in the stomach, but in the mind. Outside, Berlin rain kisses your jacket. You think of the old woman in Hanoi, the teenager in Saigon, the refugee in Paris, the chef in Orange County, the artist in Kreuzberg, and realize pho isn't being lost to pretension. It's being translated again and again. Somehow, it always makes sense. It's hot again, but not from weather. This heat comes from screens, a million glowing rectangles, all tuned into the same thing. A viral video of someone dipping a banh mi into a steaming bowl of pho, slow-motion broth dribbling down the crust soundtracked by lo-fi beats and crunchy ASMR. The caption, why choose one? Just combine. You're in 2021 now, somewhere between peak food trend and cultural identity crisis. The comments are a battlefield. Open quote, this is genius. My grandma just disowned me through the screen. I would die for this sandwich. This isn't pho. This is trauma in a bun. Uncle Bao is rolling in his grave and he's not even dead yet. Close quote. But the algorithm doesn't care. The views climb. The sandwich sells out. In a kitchen somewhere in Atlanta, a young Vietnamese American chef named Lynn is prepping 400 Banh Mi Pho fusion subs for the lunch rush. Her TikTok hit 2 million views last night. She barely slept, but she's smiling. Because this is what she's been waiting for. You watch her work. She dips the baguette in broth like it's a ritual, spreads hoisin mayo with precision, stacks slices of faux brisket, adds pickled onions, cilantro, raw bean sprouts for crunch, and a quick flick of lime juice that sizzles when it hits the hot bread. She wraps it in paper printed with her family's old pho recipe. Just enough nostalgia to feel authentic. People eat it in their cars, in the parking lot, in their cubicles while muted on Zoom. They post photos. Tag her, call it comfort food 2.0. And here's what's strange. They're not wrong. Because somehow, despite the trends, the drama, the hashtags, the gentrification, and the ghost kitchens, the flavor still holds. And here's a truth Lynn whispers to you between shifts. Open quote, people say I'm disrespecting tradition, but my family didn't survive war and immigration, so I could just copy. I'm not preserving pho like it's in a museum. I'm living it. Close quote, you nod. Because what else can you say? She's right. Preserving food doesn't mean freezing it in time. Sometimes it means letting it grow teeth, letting it jump platforms, wear new clothes, get likes and dislikes and retweets and burned in the comments. Sometimes it means letting a 16-year-old in Cleveland think this is what banh mi tastes like, and that's still being okay. Because food isn't always about being right, it's about being felt. You scroll through your phone later and find a new spin. Open quote, banh mi taco, pho consomme shot, pho nachos, rice noodles, hoisin queso, brisket crumbs. Build your own banh mi bar for weddings, includes mini pho shooters. Pho ice cream, don't ask, close quote. Then you laugh, then you pause, then you think, this isn't dilution, this is velocity. A food that once simmered for hours is now viral in seconds. But the love, still hot, still rich, still layered, just like the broth. So you close the app, lick the chili oil from your fingers, and whisper like a secret only you and the internet understand. Somewhere, someone is making pho wrong, and it's still absolutely delicious. And the wind tonight carries a strange mix. Grilled meat, motorbike exhaust, and distant music drifting over a quiet alley in Saigon. Yes, Yes, Saigon, you're back. After all the airports, the food trucks, the fusion, the fight, the fog, the foam, the fame, this is where it started. And now you're here again, standing on the corner of where pho used to be simple, where banh mi wasn't conceptual, just breakfast. But it's different now. So are you. The city hums with ambition. You pass neon-lit cafes named after French philosophers, bubble tea shops with jungle decor, and a sleek high-rise with a 24-hour banh mi drive-thru on the ground floor. Wait, what? You blink. It's real. You step closer. A touchscreen menu glows in front of you like a strange dream. Classic pate plus ham, salted egg yolk, roast duck, lemongrass chicken, mac and cheese. Vegan pho-inspired banh mi, truffle mushroom, crispy shallots, truffle. In a banh mi, you laugh out loud, a little bitter, a little proud. You place your order anyway, and while the machine hums, wrapping your sandwich in branded wax paper, you notice the people behind you in line. A teenage couple holding hands, a Grab driver with helmet still on, a businessman in a suit, tapping his phone, an old woman with 3 baguettes in her tote, one sticking out like a reminder. No one thinks this is strange, because banh mi never left Saigon. It just kept going, like the city itself, faster, shinier, messier, louder. But if you peel away the noise, there's something still beating in the center of it all. That crust, that crunch, that unmistakable warmth of meat and memory. You sit at a bench across the street, unwrapping your sandwich like it's sacred, and it kind of is. The first bite, soft bread, crackle crust, smoky duck, buttery yolk, pickled crunch, and yes, a faint note of truffle that makes you both cringe and grin. It's absurd, it's indulgent, it's perfect. Here's the part they don't write on the wrapper. This sandwich was made by a machine, but it was built by hundreds of hands over decades. The old street vendors with bamboo baskets, the first wave of refugees, the kids who microwaved instant pho at midnight, the chefs who rolled rice sheets into art, the influencers who filmed it in slow motion. All of them brought it here, to this bench, to your hands, to your mouth. And isn't that the story of banh mi? Not just invention, accumulation, 100 years of adjustments, of adaptation, of unapologetic flavor. You take another bite, not because you're hungry, but because you're grateful. You remember the first time you had it on a sidewalk, knees bent, dripping pate on your shirt. You remember your mom unwrapping it from a napkin at the airport. You remember a version from a vending machine in Tokyo, another from a street cart in Berlin, a weird one with mozzarella in Dalat. And now you're home. The same, but not like the sandwich, like the city, like you. The sun is rising, slow, gold, gentle. You're in a small courtyard behind a family home in the Mekong Delta where the air smells like wet earth and star anise. A rooster crows in the distance, someone is sweeping with a straw broom. You're barefoot, holding a bowl as though inside the bowl, pho, plain, honest, steaming. No truffle oil, no twist, no fusion, just broth, beef, rice noodles, herbs from the garden, and time. So much time. You sit at the low wooden table, surrounded by a silence that doesn't ask to be filled. The dog sleeps under your chair, a fan spins slowly overhead. Someone is humming a lullaby in the kitchen. And here, at the end of this winding, wild, miraculous journey, pho is quiet again. It's not viral, not reinvented, not arguing, it's just here. And maybe you think this is what was waiting at the end of all those continents, clips, carts, collabs, critiques. Not a destination, but a return. You lift the spoon. The broth is delicate but deep. There's marrow in it, literal and emotional. You taste Hanoi's clarity, Saigon's boldness, Dalat's absurdity, Tokyo's grace, Berlin's questions, California's hustle, Little Saigon's resilience, and your grandmother's hands, which always moved slower when she made this. And suddenly you understand. Pho is not a dish. It's a map of everything we've carried, lost, reimagined, forgiven, shared, of exile and return, of hunger and invention, of a people who kept boiling bones even when the world forgot them, of love that smells like cinnamon and onion at 5 a.m. You finish the bowl, not rushed, not distracted, just present. And as you sit there, warmed all the way through, a light breeze passes and carries the last bit of steam into the sky, like a thread rising, like a story finishing itself. So now you lie back in the wooden chair, let your limbs soften, let your eyes close, let the morning take over. There's nothing left to chase. Pho has brought you all the way here, not to eat again, but to rest, to remember that what fills us isn't always the food. Sometimes it's the quiet after, the way the flavor lingers, the way way the memory stays warm, the way something that took so long to make can make you feel whole in a single moment. And in that moment, you are whole. And so, with your breath slowing and the sunlight wrapping you gently, and the broth still echoing inside your chest like a lullaby, you drift softly, quietly, peacefully to sleep. End of script. Sweet dreams.